Hello, everybody. Old Buck Dave back here again with episode 188. That's 188 of Two Old Bucks, and with me is
Oh, Buckdale.
Old Buck Dale. Welcome, buddy.
Yep. Good to be back.
Good to be back. One more episode. Well, by the way, happy birthday.
Oh,
Tomorrow's
yeah.
the big day, right?
Tomorrow is the big day.
You join me. You're still 1 month younger than I am.
I follow you. I have been
You
following
follow
you for years on that account. Yes, I am.
Okay. We had a couple of our listeners wrote in and said, I hope Dell's okay.
Oh,
And I said, well, he'll explain his departure. What he had a commitment. He'll explain it next episode. So I'm turning this over to you now. See if you can worm your way out of this.
well, okay. Well, we have done some amazing things on our podcast that I don't believe any other podcast has ever done. We did. I think of amazing card tricks. I thought were unbelievable that we did on the podcast.
Eating ants, lying on the doctor's floor. Yeah.
Well,
you're special.
Yeah, these are just some unique things that we've encountered. But I mean, like there's a time when you'll mention that you noticed that my sound sounded a little funny, and the whole time I was eating a sub sandwich.
That'll do it.
So we've done a lot of unique things. The other day we were alluding to some of my shall I call it erratic? Not erratic. It's not erratic. It's different. It's just a different drummer behavior.
No, you're definitely an erratic drummer. You are a crazed drummer.
I do think differently. Yeah, I do think differently than others, I suppose. But we were talking about that, and we were alluding to the fact that I might be even from another planet. And then I thought it was appropriate when you said, Scotty beamed me up, and then I left. And that and for some other reasons. But I thought it was a good timing to, if anybody put that together, that I said Scotty beamed me up, and then boom, I was gone.
Boom. Okay, so you're really
serious happened to me. Yeah,
you're really not going to explain it, but the good news is you're back.
I'm back. Yeah,
unscathed, uninjured.
No, nothing like that. It was nothing like that.
Just mind is still warped.
Just a peculiar exit, I suppose. I don't know what you call it.
We'll let it go at that. Hey, we got some good responses from Captain Jim's Panama story with the mountain gorillas. So thanks again to Captain Jim. It's good to see that people are enjoying the stories, that the tall tales. They're not tall tales; they're all true tales that Jim's telling us. And so it's heartening to see that listeners take the time to write in and say, thanks, that was a good story. Speaking of reader comments, we got a couple comments on the picture of yours. And as you recall, I did offer anybody that wanted a picture of you with your device.
My self-talking device?
Yeah, this is like, yeah. So we had a number of requests, actually. And so I sent the picture to those people with the caption, would you sit next to this guy on the bus?
Well,
so
I think I got to tell people that also that we had to set that. We were actually physically together having coffee and lunch, and he said, well, we gotta be able to demonstrate that. So we basically photographed it, and that's what you used, because you didn't actually catch me on the bus with that. So
I didn't catch you on the bus. No, that was a reenactment. It's like a Civil War reenactment. Yeah. Okay.
So anyhow, what kind of response?
So here's
you
the
didn't
comments. These get increasingly more flamboyant, I guess. The first one is, I don't know what the fuss was about. Pleasant-looking gentleman, nothing intimidating. Nice hat, by the way. That's pretty complimentary response there. I was surprised by that. All right.
Well, I had my fedora on. That's
you
all.
did.
I look good in that.
You did look good. You do look good. Here's the second one. Let's just say he looks eccentric. I thought that was kind.
Yeah.
He looked eccentric.
Eccentric is a.
You'll accept that, right?
I'll accept
That could
that.
be a compliment even.
Yeah.
That probably is a compliment. Yeah. Okay. So there's the
So
next one.
good. Carry on. Carry
Carry
on.
on. This could rekindle the NFT market. Quite unique.
Oh no.
So we might have to put that picture on the market here. Anybody who wants to buy, get the NFT and own the rights to that picture. So okay, here's the next one. Definitely from the parallel universe. I think that says it all.
Well, it's to me, it's just so funny that something that unworkable. I mean, it's just like, what possibly could that thing, how could that possibly work?
Hmm.
And why would anybody do it? And then you just think, oh, well, to each
Yeah.
his own, and you carry
Each
on. So
time.
that's the way the world is now. It's a really, really
Next one,
interesting stuff.
the next one shows a little bit of concern here. It says, "Is he going to swallow that thing?" So there's somebody looking out for your welfare here.
Yeah, yeah, that would
Okay.
be, but it did, I did describe or did show the way we described that. So it's probably easier than my description of it. So
Hmm.
at least they could see that. So,
Okay. Okay. Here's the next one.
mm.
He he probably uses the self-checkout lines at the stores too. I kind of like I liked what that one had to say there.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, now they're getting a little crazier now.
Okay.
I hope he doesn't suck his brains out with that gadget. I'll tell you, we've got some creative listeners. That's off to the listeners. I thought we
Well,
were down to two or three listeners, but we've
well,
I don't know.
everybody has a different interpretation. This
Yeah.
is a real experience, a social
Yeah,
experiment
this is
here.
the first
There's
time you're hearing
another,
these two. This is not a
it's
setup there.
another first for the two old bucks where we performed another experience of a photo, and what does that photo imply? So carry on, carry on.
Okay, here we go. We got a couple more. Believe it or not. It says, laughing until tears. I would stay as far away as possible, might even get off the bus and wait for the next one. There
Now,
you go.
now that's an interesting, see, that is an interesting comment because when you run into those characters, and I think some are more bizarre than the photo that we used, that's exactly what you do. You know, you see that and you think, oh, I got to get as far away from that as possible. So
Hmm.
I don't do that intentionally to keep people away from sitting to me, but that experiment was just to
Hmm.
prove that nobody pays any attention to, and if
Hmm.
they are paying attention to, they're terrified.
They're terrified. Okay, here's the
Uh,
last. So we got a couple
uh,
more, but they were just kind of mundane. They say, oh, that's kind of cute. But this is my favorite here.
hmm.
If I was 9 months pregnant and my water broke, I still wouldn't sit next to him on the bus.
And
uh,
I'm thinking maybe that would be a good thing for me not to have that happen.
oh man,
Well,
that's
all in all, it's all our listeners out there, you all have stories about circumstances where there's groups of people, and this is a case of sort of a regular group of people. I mean, you know what I mean? There's a traveling crowd that does it almost daily, but you run into situations where you think, oh, how does that work? Or how do they carry that? You know, you start to think about how this other person is coping with the circumstances that they're in. So
yeah.
I think it's interesting.
It's
I appreciate
interesting
that.
and
I really their
appreciate
responses.
yeah, and I think it's going to get even better when we do that little 60-second video of you explaining the whole process.
And well, if
Uh,
you have the courage to hang out, if you have the courage to hang out, I'll take you to some of the bus stations.
okay.
Put
Uh,
a little sign on, put
oh my.
a
What
little
else is
sign on your
uh,
back, say steal his phone.
still? All right.
Oh
What
well,
else is going
we'll
on in
ask.
your
We'll see how
world?
that plays out.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, folks. I'm kind of done with my little remodeling job, but just a quick thought. Some of the uh, some of the stuff that we were installing, like I was installing some ceiling fans and some really ingeniously designed ceiling fans, different than the sort of mediocre fan or the standard fan,
Mm-hmm.
the $59 fan, let's put it that way, different. And it's all made in China. It's all made in China. I think I get the impression that three-quarters of everything that's in those big box hardware stores, Home Depot and Lowe's or something, is all made in China. What will we do without China?
What would we do without them? Yeah,
What will we do without China?
we would
So,
we'd be paying more for everything.
well, I
So,
don't even so, but the design and the quality, wasn't that bad at all. It was looked
mhm.
when you put a bunch of different type of fans together, I started to compare. So, gee, this is pretty clever. Whoever thought of how to put this together? So, anyhow, that's my thought. I'm done with that particular phase for a while. I am going to stick around and do a little more domestic stuff and kind of stay out of trouble. It's hot. It's hot out there.
Oh man, speaking of hot,
Hmm.
and speaking of remodeling, actually, now you were not on that remodeling job. You probably got sweaty and maybe even stinky. I don't know. Certainly, we get all sweaty here in the Florida sun.
Easily and quickly.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah.
But have you noticed? Have you smelled your forearms or your thighs lately? Do you notice any smell?
Huh.
No, you don't, right?
I have not. I have
You have
not.
not noticed the smell. You know why? That's because those body parts don't smell. But
Huh.
you have you noticed all these TV ads recently for whole body deodorant? Whole body deodorant. This is something that Madison Avenue is trying to convince us that we need now. It's there's one shot. It's a woman rubbing it all over her thighs. She says, "Yeah, who's got smelly thighs? Nobody I know."
I thought about that too. I thought about that too. It's like, what haven't we done with this particular product?
Yep.
And it's like, say, well, geez, why don't we just claim that you need to rub it all over?
There's a bigger market out there we haven't
That's right. There's a
exploited.
market for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And
So,
Dave, sometimes I forget just because I don't use it. I don't buy it, or I don't
hmm
that the other 300 million or 500 million people out there, the three-quarters of them aren't buying it. You know what I mean?
uh,
You wonder. So you're saying that it's a little bit of hype, but
yeah.
use it
Well,
if you want to. It really doesn't make any difference.
we'll do a little science explanation here. You know, the body's got two kinds of sweat glands. The places that have the sweat gland that where we get stinky are, of course, under the armpits and the groin and your feet. All right.
Mhm.
So that's because the sweat from those glands, the excretion from those glands, uh, gets attacked by the bacteria on your skin, and that's what forms that stinky smell. All right.
Mhm.
Now, in the rest of your body, you don't have that kind of sweat gland. You just have it's just a different sweat gland that doesn't produce anything that the bacteria interact with to any great degree. So that's the science behind it. So that's why I scratch my head. It's like, why do we really need this? Why do we really need this? It's a deodorant by definition is basically a perfume. Okay. It does not stop perspiration. Antiperspirants stop perspiration, by plugging up your pores. I don't know. Maybe this is a public service announcement saying, folks, you don't need this stuff. You really don't. I was in the drugstore the other day, and my God, there must have been 10 square feet of whole body deodorants on the shelf now. It's just bizarre. That's my rant for the day.
And your point is we really don't need that stuff.
That is my point. that is, it's just shake
I
my
think that
head.
applies
I
to a
shake
lot
my,
of things. I
that
think that
applies to a
applies
lot
to a
of
lot of
things.
things. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we really don't need that stuff.
Really don't need that
So,
stuff, but
oh well, okay.
let's trying to
You,
do a little education here.
things that we notice different things, you and I.
We
Everybody's caught on to that. We see life from a different perspective. Although I agree with you on that. I've noticed that myself. So so what else did you want to tell me?
What else did I want to
Just
tell you?
between me and you.
Between the two of us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just since it's just the two of us, I was talking about my Frankenbike. I tallied it up. I've got parts from 20 bikes on this thing. This is this 1980-ish Japanese frame I bought. So I've got in my collection. Um, I've managed to get the bike on the road. Now I had most of the parts on hand, but I didn't have the right cassette for the rear that I wanted. But fortunately, Superman Terry heard my distress and sent me a cassette. So thanks to Terry for that. So I owe him one.
So explain to our listeners that how you can accumulate literally enough parts, less the stripped down frame to
Uh,
build a bike, and that's
how
you
can you
know
do that? I guess
yeah.
by being a pack rat. The stuff is just it's accumulated over the years. I took something off of a bike, or I picked this up here.
Over many years,
Many,
over
yeah,
many
yeah, many years. And a
many
lot of these
years.
are new, actually new components that I probably bought 10 or 20 years ago. And they just sat on a shelf. The other help I got was Hugo. Remember Hugo, who I used to work
Yeah,
for?
yeah, he's a
He's
bike
a
guy.
espresso bike repair.
Hmm.
He gave me a tire. I had some struggles with the rear tire that I was trying to make work, and he showed mercy. He says, "Here, well, this is the one that'll work, Dave." So thanks to Hugo for that. The only things I had to buy were a headset. That's the bearings that let you steer the bike,
Hmm.
and I had to buy the brake levers because I didn't have brake levers. So I spent $19 total on them. The handlebar was really a wide old handlebar that I had. It was still with its original packaging. Looked like a Texas Longhorn steer. So I had to saw off 2 inches from each end to make it look almost presentable. I did get a kind of a
I
sneery
should,
comment
I
from somebody when I
should.
saw it before I got shot.
Well, I got to say this. I have seen what you call your town bikes. We'll be gentle about that. We called it a town bike. This is a bike when we were downtown. You'd show up on that bike. I got there by bus to the coffee shop, and you got there by bike. And these things look really, really nice. And I said, "What is that a new one?" He said, "No, that's just my local town bike because
Mm-hmm.
you can, you could park it someplace. There wasn't nothing to steal
Yep.
off of it or nothing like that. And it was safe moving it around in case it fell over or something."
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But I got to tell our listeners that when you build a bike, you cannot distinguish that bike from a factory bike because you essentially understand every component of it. I mean, literally, the frame has nothing on it, and you put every bearing in, so you know exactly how well built it is. But you look at it and think,
Or
man,
isn't? Yeah.
he must have spent a lot of money on that bike. In reality, it's just an
Yeah.
accumulation of bits
It's
and pieces that
accumulation. That's why I
you
call it
just love to do it,
A
and I
Frankenbike.
admire you for
I
doing
do.
it.
I do. I once, I sold my beater bike and then I really missed it. And I thought, I got to do another one. So I still have a little tweaking to do. Uh, I won't get into the gory details of that. But anyway,
Well, all in all, it is a
but I,
is a
yeah,
hobby for
I
you.
did take it on a maiden voyage. And just between the two of us, I'll tell you, I did fall off the bike. So,
Well, was it after I saw you or before I saw you? Must have been
uh,
before.
must have been
Yeah,
before.
yeah, because you weren't wearing any bandages or limping.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so embarrassing. I took it out of on the voyage. I was going to be just a little 10 miles around the neighborhoods, and I took some Allen wrenches with me. And the first thing I noticed is I didn't have the handlebar aligned perfectly with the front wheel, and I was like, okay, I'll fix that later. And it just bothered me more and more and more, and I finally had to stop and got off the bike and loosened the steering.
Hmm. The nut
Okay.
that holds that down.
The
Yeah.
nut that holds the stem. Yeah. Straightened everything out, retightened it like, okay. And I thought, well, while I'm here, I'm just going to check all the other nuts and bolts because I had it, I did all this up on the bike stand and I might not have really double checked everything. Everything was good. Got back on the bike, riding. And then I'm thinking, what about the quick release hubs? Did I really tighten them enough to make road ready? I thought, well, I must have. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I thought, well, next time I next time I find a shady spot, I'll stop and check them just away. So I come to an intersection, stop, start again, and the bike doesn't go anywhere. It does. I got halfway out in the intersection
Oh,
and it would not go. And of course, what had happened is the rear wheel slipped against the frame. This is definitely a no-no. This is just not supposed to happen. So that's why I'm only telling you. Okay. So I
that's
did one of
right.
those
Just
slow
between me
motion,
and you. Just
one of those
between me
slow
and you.
motion falls. You know, my feet are still clipped into the pedal, and I'm holding the bike up in the air. There's a guy watching me on the curb. He's shaking his head. Actually, no, he came over. Oh, you okay? You okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. Just embarrassed. And of course, tightened everything up, and I was on my way. But it was just, I felt silly. It felt silly. That's not supposed to happen. But what can I tell you?
Well, the difference between, uh, I mean, I have a bike too, and I have a little basket in the front, and and so I like to put my little French bread, in the basket, and
Of
then I
course.
ride home with my little French bread in the basket and sitting upright and pedaling my quarter mile.
Nice.
Ah, you love
Nice.
it. It's a
I
great.
do.
I'm happy for you. So,
I do. Yeah.
hey, you were going to tell me about some books.
I
Were you
could do
talking?
that. I could
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Give me a quick. I want to give you a quick update on that one I read too. What was
Okay.
you reading?
Well, I mentioned an episode or two back that I finished my night book.
Hmm.
Now, this book is called A Separation. The author is Katie Kitamura. I really enjoyed the book. It's interesting. Almost nothing happens in this book, okay? And this is apparently why it's gotten a low rating on Goodreads. I post my books on Goodreads, and sometimes I do a book review. Mostly it's just a place for me to keep a tally how many books I read, which books I read every year, and how much I like them, that sort of thing. I think the problem is a lot of people were expecting a thriller here. I think it was marketed as kind of a thriller, or kind of the next Gone Girl or something like that. But basically, it really doesn't have much of a plot at all. All right. Now, there's a woman, the protagonist is a woman. It's kind of 30-ish. Has been married for 4 or 5 years. And she and her husband, by mutual agreement, have separated, but they haven't told anybody. Particularly, haven't told his family. He's from a wealthy family. And when one day she gets a call from her mother-in-law asking to speak to her son, and she says, "He's not here. I don't know where he is." Actually, the mother-in-law figures out that he is in Greece. He had said that he was going to go to Greece and do some research on a book that he was writing. And the mother-in-law also figured out which hotel he was in. So she says, "You've got to go to this hotel in Greece and find him and make sure everything's okay." She sends her the tickets and everything and says, "Go." So she goes. But it's really a character study where this woman is just kind of peeling back the layers of the onion of their relationship, really, and of herself, and how you can never know another person. So I just want to read an expert, a little excerpt so you get a feel for it. It's really interesting writing. A lot of people didn't like it. Again, they didn't like it because they said, well, nothing really happens in the book. So here we go. Of course, unavailability served a different purpose for a man, or at least a man like Christopher. For him, perhaps, the ring served to give him a longer leash. It was more difficult to make demands of a married man, however far things. He could always say, "You knew from the start that I was married. You knew what you were getting into." It was plain as the ring on my finger. Perhaps each time he set out to Rome, and I knew there had been plenty of such times over the course of our short marriage, he had dug out his wedding ring in order to feel more free. From the drawer of his desk or from the leather case in which he kept his watches and billfold clips, I realized then that I didn't even know where he kept his ring. You're either going to love that or hate it. So, uh,
Interesting observation.
yeah, I thought so.
So your comment of do you really know people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would give, I mean, you think you know somebody, you've been married a long time. I've been married a fair amount of time, and you have friends, but we're an evolving creature. Things change. Sometimes, I would say people are surprised. They
Yeah.
thought they knew somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then something else changes. So,
Yeah. Well, let me just read a quick review. This is
mhm.
one of the other people who read the book did a couple sentence review. It says, "A separation is an exquisitely written ride to nowhere, and we are riding sidecar with a main character who thinks a lot, but even as we turn the last page, still doesn't know what she wants. If writing is more important to you than plot, as it is for me generally, this could be a novel for you. Don't say I didn't warn you, though." So I thought that really sums it up very nicely. Now, I'd give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a real interesting read. It's a real deep study. Peeling away the layers, why we do the things or don't do the things that we do.
You gave it how many stars?
I'll give it 4 out of 5. Yeah,
That's
it
not
wasn't it
bad.
wasn't the perfect book, but I just really enjoyed getting into her head. So
Okay.
recommend it to anybody that likes that kind of a thought story.
Well, I was just going to give a quick, and I'm terrible at book reviews, but I'm just going to give a quick rundown on that book by David Ignatius called The
Yeah,
Phantom Orbit.
yeah. Tell us.
I thought there was some lengthy character development in there that I didn't think was necessary, but I guess looking back on it, he needed to do that to shore up the plot. And the plot is basically to convince or make people believe that something is wrong when there is nothing wrong with it in order to destroy it by trying to fix it. Does that
Ooh,
make sense to you?
ooh. Say that again slowly.
To convince people that there's something wrong when
Hmm.
there is
When there
actually
really
nothing
isn't.
wrong, when there
Uh-huh.
isn't anything wrong, and then in order to try to fix it, and then it causes all kind of problems. That's where you run into a device that would tell you something like, let's say your car. If you could remotely make all the engine lights come on, you
Hmm.
know, in a car, and then there really is nothing wrong with it, but you just saw the light there, and then
Hmm.
you start panicking and trying to fix it and taking for service or this, that, or the other thing. So, it was cute. I would give it maybe a 3-star rating.
Okay.
In my book, I mean, a 5-star would be like Gentleman of Moscow, but the 3-star is amusing, interesting read. You can pass some
Hmm.
time with it.
Okay. And the main story is about GPS jamming. Is that
It has
part
to
of?
do with space warfare.
Okay. Right.
He was a very technical, um, some technical explanations of things that convinced me was worth reading, if you know what I
Hmm.
mean. It was enough,
Hmm.
there was enough data that kept me fascinated by, is this possible and how would this end? Yeah, pick it up if somebody has is going on a little trip or on
Hmm.
vacation or something light to read. I think it's worth looking at. So,
Okay.
and
Good.
I read it on a Kindle,
Hmm.
and I usually don't read books on electronic devices, but man, you can really blow through a book flipping pages on a Kindle. I can't do it like that with a, you know,
Pages
with,
turn faster, don't they?
I mean, you can just flip through these things because you can blow up the size of the letters. You can do all kind of stuff with this book or this Kindle. So you can read the middle 5 sentences and get an idea what that page is about and jump back until you get to the action.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So you can go through 15, 20 pages and really not reading every word, but I did it on that, and that's why it went so quickly. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents on that
Okay.
subject.
All right. Super. Okay. So tell us the name of the book one more time.
Phantom Orbit, Phantom Orbit by David
By David
Ignatius.
Ignatius. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I think
So
you did put a link to that.
I did. I did.
Other than that, who was authorized in your house answer this first. Who is authorized in your house to control the thermostat?
To
Be
control
careful
the
how you answer
thermostat.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's allowed in your
I
house to
think
control the thermostat?
I'm once in a while I'm allowed to use it. I'm allowed to change it. What about you?
Well, I like to think that I control the thermostat.
You like to
Uh,
think.
I like to think that I control it to be conservative and to keep a proper temperature and so on and so forth. But it turns out I'm not really in control of it. And
You want to
so,
elaborate on that?
yeah, well, my lovely wife, I try to convince her. I said, you don't need to turn it down 10 degrees to cool the house. If you're warm, 1 degree will do it. It'll just take the edge off, and the temperature in the air conditioner is always the same. It blows the same cold air no matter what you set it at. It just blows it longer or shorter.
Mhm.
So when she feels a little bit warm, she just knocks that thing down 3 notches, and then I said, I'm shivering and I'm
Why,
shaking. I'm thinking,
why,
yeah,
yeah, why am I
midday.
putting a
I said,
jacket on?
yeah, why is it so cold in here? Let me go check it, and you find out the temperature's so way down. Which brings me to, and I will elaborate on that. You'll know it. The people out there know what I'm talking about if it's happened to them. But there was one time I met a young electrician. I was working with him on a job, and I asked him, "How you doing?" He said, "Oh, so." He said, "I got divorced, and things are going on." And
Hmm.
he talking a little bit about his life and family and so on and so forth. So I had the courage to ask him. I said, "Well, what? You're young, you have a whole life ahead of you, and it sounded to me like you were doing all right.
You were in a good place.
Yeah, you were in a good place." I said, "Well, what could have happened that would have caused you and your wife to separate?" And this is true. It's a
Hmm.
true story. He
Okay.
looks to me with a straight face and said, "My house had a thermostat." And it completely said it all to me.
Oh.
So if it wasn't that issue, they clearly could not agree on things. You know what I mean, Dave?
Mm.
It's like a what not a euphemism, but an analogy
Yeah.
of when you really can't work together.
He squeezed a toothbrush. She
Yeah,
rolled it. A toothpaste.
yeah,
She rolled it.
whatever it
Yeah.
was, she'd do something different.
Hmm.
And I
And it
said,
all
I left, and I
stacks
said,
up.
well, I shook my head and laughed, and I said, there you go. So I'm not the only person that has a thermostat that gets automatically set.
Yeah.
No
Oh,
one knows who said it. Did you say? I
yeah.
didn't touch it.
I didn't touch it. I got to say, we're pretty compatible thermostat wise here. So that's a good thing. We're
Well,
generally in agreement.
blessed
So,
are those who are compatible with a thermostat thing. So
yeah.
anyhow, that's
Anyhow,
my story on that. Let's a lighthearted, I got a lighthearted ending to our little discussion today. I think, don't you think?
I think that's a nice end to our little discussion today,
Yeah.
actually. That's a
I
good.
want to thank all our listeners and their comments and just rolling along with us as we reach milestone after milestone.
Phew, even
So we do
birthdays.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we definitely do appreciate it. This is Old Buckdale saying thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.
And this is Old Buck Dave saying thank you also. It's been fun. Stick around for 189. Take care, folks. Bye bye.